All right, joining us in the studio at 1625 Buffalo Avenue, Niagara Falls, is an old friend of mine, Daniel Herrington. Now, I'm probably going to call him Dan throughout the course of the show, but it's Daniel because he's a proper guy. So our studios have been here in the old Carborunda building on Buffalo Avenue in Niagara Falls for, I want to say, 8 years now. And Dan is one of the first people that I met when I moved in, because Dan was working downstairs, delivering people around Western New York as part of, I feel like there's 3 different cab companies in the building, and I don't remember which one is which.
Yeah, I work for A Plus Express Transportation. Thank you for the introduction as well.
You're very welcome. So that's how I met Dan. But I know Dan just because he's a good guy. He's funny. He makes me laugh. I know he does some comedy, and he plays cornhole. So we're going to talk about all those things and just some variety of other things. Now, Dan, it's been a while since you've been in the office, and I know that you were about, I want to say, 2/3 the man you were last time I saw you. You've lost some serious weight. How are you feeling?
I'm a little less than 2/3.
Really?
130 pounds. I'm currently 203.
Yeah. Dan was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was like October, maybe August was the proper diagnosis of 2024.
All right. So not quite 2 years ago.
It was about 2 years ago that I was feeling the symptoms and side effects. And
one of the first things Dan told me was, I'm going to fucking beat it.
No doubt.
And it's been 2 years, and you look really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How are you feeling, though?
I feel like spiritually I've grown to a level that's not even humanized anymore.
Really?
I feel like I'm closer to the creator of the universe through having that dependency of needing him instead of just floating through life with my head in a cloud thinking that we're just here for torture.
Now, the spirituality that you bring up, this is a new side of you. This is something I'm unfamiliar with. Is this part of your treatment?
Well, no. To be honest with you, October 19th, 1993, I was in a group home trying to get transferred to Baker Hall, and I wanted to go to Baker Hall because all my friends were there. And
Baker Hall is in Father Baker?
Yes, sir.
All right.
From Mike Willimon, who's no longer with us. He passed away, but I wanted to be with him because we were tight and I trusted him.
All right.
I wanted to know all this God stuff, if it was real or not. And I was in a Christian home, and I asked, his name was Jim Payne. He was a pastor in, I'll think of the town in a minute, but not Hornell. It'll come to me out that way. And I said, what's all this God crap you talk about? And he said,
all this God crap. I'm sure that went over well.
It's real, and if it ain't, it ain't. Actually, I said, what's all this God shit you talk about? And he said, you got 15 minutes discipline time. I said, as long as you ain't bullshit me, I'll do 5 hours. Get to the point. Is it real or is it bullshit?
Right.
And he told me, here's John 3:16. You invite him in your heart, and you'll notice day by day that you're not the same person anymore. And I kind of did that. And the first thing I did, even before all that happened, when I opened up my eyes, was I said my first prayer, and I said, God, if you're real, help me go home. Give me a way to get home. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, the tough guy wanted to be transferred with his buddy so we could have an organized camp. You know?
Right.
And I got called up into the office not even 24 hours later by Harry Ballas. He was the head overseer of New Life Home Snow Farm, where I was placed for 18 months. I ended up doing 36 without seeing a judge. So this is approximately 30 months in. Everything okay?
Yeah, just keep talking.
And what he said to me was, Daniel, if you tried half as hard to go home as you were to get transferred, you'd be home by now. And that really opened up my eyes, because the night before I was praying to God, and I said, if you're real and there's a way that I can go home, show me. And that's what opened up my curiosity. And you're talking to somebody who's been a believer since October 19th, 1993. I lied, 93 or 96, I can't remember. It was like towards the end, whenever I turned 15. My father had pancreatic cancer. I got to watch him. They prayed for him. They gave him 6 months to live, the same timing as Michael Landon had the diagnosis.
Uh-huh.
Michael Landon lived 3 months fighting with the best doctor money you could have. My dad lived 6 years, set medical history books, and showed me that prayer changes things. And I never gave up hope that it could. And when I got hit with the illness, I knew that it was going to teach me something.
Right.
And, don't pray for patience. You'll be waiting in line a lot. You'll be waiting a lot. You'll be building patience.
Sure.
patience comes through tribulation. So if you don't like waiting, don't try to be a patient person. But without patience, you're going to be a hothead.
So when you were diagnosed in August of 23,
and I'm
what
don't
worry about it. What did they tell you at the time?
They told me that I would get results within a few days. Up to like a week later, my appointment was. I got called the next day and was asked if I could come in the office. And I did, and I went in. They did an endoscopy. They stuck a tube down my throat. Maybe 5 years ago, they told me that I had scar tissue from acid reflux and that I could turn cancerous if I don't treat it. And at this stage, it was called Barrett's esophagus. And what that is when your natural pH levels create acid in your stomach overly. It backs up into your esophagus and it burns your esophagus till it turns into the texture of the exterior of your cheek. If you would feel where a man's beard would grow, that's about the texture of what the inside of my esophagus that was diagnosed with Barrett's was. Now, if you take your finger and reach inside and feel the texture of the inside of your cheek, that's the texture it should be. They told me that if I keep burning a burn, it creates carcinogens, cancer's the next state. Watch what I eat, watch my diet, do this, do that, do the other thing, and hope you don't get it. Well, I was eating food and it'd get stuck and I'd throw up and I wasn't getting the calorie count. And I ended up procrastinating for about 8 months because I was scared of what it was because I knew it was probably cancer.
Right.
I almost died on a cinnamon bun. It got stuck in my throat, and I had this trick with a water bottle. If I built up pressure, squeezed it hard, it would blow through and clear my throat, and I could gasp for air and breathe again. But unfortunately, with this cinnamon roll that was homemade out of the oven, fresh and hot, I didn't eat all day. My calorie counts were low. My proteins were low. I was losing weight like you wouldn't believe, and I was starving. So I'm trying to eat like a normal person and wondering why it's getting stuck and lodged. It felt like I didn't have enough saliva to allow the food to go through. Then I started noticing it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and I had no option but to wither away to nothing or get it looked into. So I went and...
Let me pause real quick. And we'll get back to this, obviously. Forgive me. We'll just put it that way.
No, never. Like,
if I gotta go, choking to death on a cinnamon bun is not the worst way.
Have you ever been held underwater against your will?
There's no cinnamon bun involved in that scenario.
I'm not saying cinnamon buns aren't good, but ultimately drowning is suffocating to death. And when
Sure.
your airway's blocked with a cinnamon bun, you feel helpless.
I can imagine.
And you get overwhelmed with, I do anyways, like claustrophobia.
Huh?
It was like my throat was claustrophobic. And I was bringing it to levels of anxiety and panicness that were surreal to me. And if it didn't hit me as personal as it did, there'd be a lot more humor in what you just said. And it's funny about how we're looking at it, and I understand the importance of a good sense of humor. And I just wanted to take the seriousness front and center for a minute, and you'll never catch me serious. If anybody is out there and they're facing something as serious as I was and you don't know what to do, the worst thing to do is nothing. I always thought that if I got diagnosed with a death sentence or something with a 21% survival rate, I would see how fast I could swim to Youngstown, if you can find the humor in that joke.
All right.
It's a little dark, but I think some people a week, some in 12 minutes. With that being said, I got back together with my high school sweetheart, and when you love somebody and you think you're going to leave them behind in a world that's just hard to get through, you have no choice but to survive with them when you love someone more than you do yourself. But
sure.
I always thought I'd take my last walk into the woods and party it out for the last 3 days. But
right.
Fortunately, the universe had different plans and rewired my brain to let me know that I had to rely on prayer, meditation. I had to learn nutrition. I had to learn the importance of calories.
How much has your diet changed?
Right now, I eat all day, every day,
all right.
Small meals. My goal is to hit 100 grams of protein and 2,000 calories a day to maintain 200 pounds. If I don't get the calories, I'm going to lose weight slowly.
Are you 200 pounds?
I am.
You don't look like you're 200 pounds.
I'm 6'4".
Wow, that'll explain it.
And if I showed,
I didn't realize you were so tall.
Yeah, well, I was 6'4". I broke my neck in 2003 in a motor vehicle accident. I lost about an inch and a half in height, so I range anywhere from 6'2" to 6'4".
Gotcha.
Depending on if I'm standing up. But the annular tear is what it's called, which is a squished disc. If you picture that all the discs in your neck are jelly donuts, mine shot the jelly out, and I lost an inch that way.
Gotcha.
So I found this home remedy if anybody's dealing with that type of issue, that if you take pectin, which is made for canning jams and jellies, the home remedy is 3 to 4 tablespoons twice a day mixed into, I use white grape.
So you're just putting the jelly back in the donut.
Yeah, well, it lubricates everything. Yeah. Pretty much. A guy from Alabama turned me onto that, and I thought it was bullshit, and whether if it's a placebo or it works, I only do it when it hurts.
Right.
It mentally works for me. And I think it works because I believe it does.
So when's the last time you were at a doctor?
As far as dentist, doctor, Roswell, personal...
Roswell, I guess.
Roswell, I sent him a message a few days ago, but I'd say it was probably about 5 weeks ago. I will show you the scar. This is, whenever this heals up, will be, like 6 weeks. But that's where the chemo port was that put the chemo into my heart. And
so as of 5 weeks ago, where do things stand?
I'm, as of December 26, 2024, I am cancer-free. Once I make it a year, which I did, they removed the port because now I can't get a port in on the right side for like 3 years. So if the cancer comes back, I got to go in on the left side, and that involves traveling through your arteries further into your heart.
Right.
Because your heart's located closer to where I showed you the scar. So before I could celebrate, ring the bell, and be like happy-go-lucky, like when they removed the cancer and I lived, I went through this thing like, everybody says I can't trust nobody. You ever let yourself down? Sucks, right? Like you want to be to work at a certain time and you oversleep, and
right.
You're driving there and nobody's as hard on you as you are.
Oh,
you really care about who you are,
I get more mad at myself than anybody else, pretty much ever. Yeah.
Exactly, and that, to me that matters. I'm gonna what I learned from playing cornhole. I know you touched base a little on that. I want to throw this out there, and all these things tie together, and they help me become who you're meeting.
Right.
It ain't like I just play cornhole and I work and like all those things together create a way of me to think, and that's what makes me an individual that's unique from everyone else.
Right.
Just like you got your hobbies, your personal life, your work life, and somehow they all intertwine together to make you who you are.
Well, and so the neat thing is, I've always thought, so you've got people that know you from cornhole.
Yes.
You've got people that know you from driving cab. You've got people that know you from comedy. You've got people that know you from high school. Those are 4 different people.
Yeah, well...
And I don't mean the 4 different people that you know. I mean, you are 4 different people to them.
Yeah. I love where this is going.
If those people all had to describe who Dan Herrington was, they would have 4 different people in mind.
Can I give you in-depth, just once over of what I just interpreted by you saying?
Of course.
You just mentioned 4 different groups of people that know who Dan Herrington is.
Right.
If they didn't know by name, and they all sat in a room and gave a description of who I am to them, would they ever figure out that they're talking about the same
Exactly.
person? You just described religion.
Yeah.
Every one of them's talking about the same God in my mind. And every one of them is right for believing what they believe.
Right.
And that's where a big phrase of mine comes from, whether if you think you can or you can't. I agree with you. And that's why I knew I was beating it.
All right, so without getting too religious, I'm going to keep it very vague. No, don't worry about it. I'm going to keep it very vague.
Thank you.
I'm not a religious person, but I do like a lot of tenets of pretty much all major religions. And all major religions basically go down to the golden rule. Be a nice person.
I was going to go with thou shalt not be an asshole.
Just be good. Exactly. And it's interesting how we've got all of these major religions, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, and obviously, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are branches of the same religion to a degree. But, then you throw in all of the other religions, and they all basically come down to just be nice to one another. And somehow or another, despite the fact that most people in the world consider themselves a member of one of those religions, we can't seem to figure out how to do that.
I think in cornhole, If I'm throwing bad and you're throwing good and we're partners and you're better than me, instantly I want to tell you I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. I accidentally knocked their bag in.
Right.
All you expect from me for not being as well of a player as you are is you just want me to get 4 bags on the board, and if I can do that, I'm going to block. They might push me in. We can get lucky. But if you're on the floor, that's a dead bag. You're out 3 points if the other guy sinks it.
Right.
So with that being said, when I'm playing with somebody who's not as well as me, the advice that I give them is, don't be sorry to me. Work on your game and be sorry that you're not playing as well as you did yesterday.
Right.
If you work on yourself and I work on myself, we're going to win. Maybe not this game.
Right.
It might take 3 weeks of you working on you, and we end up being partners again. Now we can pull it off. But if you're just sorry because you're not playing up to my game, you're never going to play my game, because all I'm doing is working on being better than I was yesterday.
And if I'm better than I was yesterday, and you're better than you were yesterday, we're still both better, but I'm still going to be better than you.
Right. Like in the end, as long as we're working on each other, our teams are not going to do anything but improve.
My fiance's uncle made us really nice Buffalo Bills cornhole.
Nice. I like it.
Tables? What do you call them?
Oh, we call them boards. Cornhole boards.
All right. Very nice cornhole boards as a wedding gift, and I don't know if I'm supposed to know that yet, but I've seen them, and they're very, very, very cool. I'm very much looking forward to playing.
What I'd like to do, I don't know if it's something you're capable of doing, but I'd like to play with you a little bit. And
Hell yeah!
I'd like you to come out and show you where I roll, and we got different brackets. We got a B league and an A league. And
I know you were telling me about the cornhole app, which I didn't know existed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. A lot of people don't know, and this is how you get involved. You can download the Scoreholio.
Right.
I advise you going and figuring out who you know that plays.
Right.
I wouldn't suggest just going in because you signed up and you want to show up. People do all the time.
Sure.
But here's the thing. If you walk in and you're playing against me and I'm not that great, I'm just good when I'm good. I'm not consistent. I don't put the work in. I don't put the time. It's like shooting pool. If you play every day, you're going to be great. If you play once a year.
Well, I think that, to your point, one of the things that keeps people from doing these sort of things is a fear of looking stupid. And sometimes you just got to look stupid so that you can look good later.
It kind of gives me where I got my backbone to do stand-up comedy.
Right.
And it also gives me my backbone. My motive in life, when I wanted to do something so bad, but I didn't have the nerve to do it, I'd do it drunk. And then I'd say, well, screw it. It ain't that bad. I did it once and lived through it. Let's do it at a time I'll remember doing.
Right. Are you still drinking?
No, it's been 6 months or better.
That's why you're losing all the weight.
I wasted a lot of my life when I thought I had all the time in the world on partying and seeing how tore out the frame I could get.
Right.
I was addicted to addiction. And luckily I didn't need any meetings, because when it became a problem, I just dropped that addiction and picked up a new one.
I feel you.
Whether I'm gambling or smoking or whatever the case is. But I found that I'm really good at making bad choices. And drinking was always a bad choice for me. Alcoholism ran in my family, and that's about all that runs in my family. So once I found out that there is a way to achieve to be who you were created to be, and you don't have to find a substance to make up for not having a guide or knowing how to become who you were created to be.
Right.
And I tried being all these other people, a tough guy, a passive guy, And at the end of the day, they were all taken, so I had to figure out who I am and become.
I have trouble seeing you being a tough guy.
When I say tough guy, I mean everybody's got a brain, right?
In theory.
There's an answer to every problem you're given.
Sure.
And there's the right way and there's plan B. I always thought about plan B first, and now I try to do everything the right way.
Gotcha.
But the definition of a right way is, if somebody bites you, the Bible says to turn the other cheek, I guess.
Right. I don't think it was about biting per se, but I feel
the feel of a pinch, or
right. I got you.
Like if somebody steals $100 from you, taking $200 from them don't make it right.
Right.
But letting them feel how you felt might be what they need to open their eyes. Or the proper way, I think, is to hand it back to the universe and just ask them if you could be a fly on a wall when they get even.
Right.
And get to see first.
And the universe does usually get even. Except I do feel like there are some people that are just immune to karma. I don't get it.
Maybe they were put here to teach us our own karma.
I don't know.
Our self-centeredness, making full return, and maybe they were created just to be a demon. And I don't understand it all totally.
Right.
But I understand that whatever I put out, I'm going to feel tenfold back.
All right, backing up. You mentioned the stand-up thing. Yeah. And I want to get that in before we run out of time, because I don't know if you remember how I told you how much time we have. So we're coming up on it.
Beautiful. One of the reasons why I did the stand-up thing, I want to get this in, is because I'm afraid of failure. All right? The fear of failure stopped me from being productive in every aspect of my life. Think back to high school when you want to talk to that girl and ask her out on a date. You got every shot in the world, right?
Right.
Why didn't you ask her? Because you're afraid of no. You don't want rejection.
Sure.
You know. So you just
and it gets worse as you get older.
Right. Well, that's what was happening in comedy. Everybody's saying you should try stand-up. You should try stand-up. And
it scared you, but you did it anyway.
Well, I was afraid I would bomb.
Right.
So what made me do it was, at least if I bomb, I did it because I'm afraid of failure, so I went there to fail. And I didn't fail. I rocked it.
Right.
And then I got sick, and I do these things called soup bones. I'll just write something down, and I'll start off with something I know is funny, but I need a storyline, so then I'll live life for a while with the joke twist I already figured out. Now I need the story to build up to it, and sooner or later, real life gives me the story that makes it even funnier than what I learn the joke. So that's how I build my soup bones, is I find the humor first,
right,
and the story second to build up.
Gotcha.
And then they got recall jokes, which would be if I tell you something now and then
towards the end of the set,
back into it and
right,
get that humor back in. And there's a lot of different things, but ultimately my advice is figure out who you were to be created and blessed enough to have an existence here, and figure out where you fit in. Because let's be honest, if you didn't have this, there's no way I could talk to whoever's listening.
Right.
So by you being obedient to who your calling is, it actually brought me in. We're going to call you the knee, and I happen to be the hip, and now the toes are getting oxygen through the blood that you allowed by inviting me on here to introduce me to the toes, because you're being obedient to who you were. Now, if you weren't, the toes would never hear what they need to hear for the oxygen to live. And I think if we all were obedient to who we were created to be, and that means dropping the ego and being less self-centered, and understanding where that good old-fashioned customer service comes from and where it went. And I think if we could touch back into who and why we were created to be here, I think that the body of us all would benefit substantially. And I think that we would make the creator of the universe happy by being more considerate of the hip and the toes when we're the knee than we are about the function of the knee.
All right.
If you follow.
I do. So I got one more thing that I want to touch on before we sign off.
Okay.
So, and it kind of ties together with everything, really. So with the stand-up, obviously you've got this wealth of life experience to draw from. But we're recalling back to the beginning of the interview where I met you because you worked downstairs at A+.
Yes.
And I have to imagine that a lot of those conversations that you have had over the years gives you great fodder for bits. Do you have any really, really good stories? Obviously, I don't want names.
I'll give you the first one. I did my training, and I was set loose and allowed to sign in and work whatever area of the city I wanted. I was working public for regular call-in taxi service. I got a call in one project area. The lady gets in my cab. She said, take me over to this project area. I got to get there before my baby daddy leaves for work, gets home from work. So I minded my own business. I wrote down a job. I cleared with her. I let the dispatcher know where I was cleared at. He gave me a pickup at the opposite end of the same projects that I dropped off at. The guy gets in. He says, you got to get me home to my wife, to my baby mama, before she goes to her man's house. And I said, well, where are you going? And he gave me the address of where I just picked up the last fare. And I put together that if they were just open in their relationship, they'd have one hell of open relationship.
Right.
They're just trying so hard to be scandalous that they're missing the joy that maybe they were created to be swingers and don't know it.
Right.
But it was at that moment I knew that I had 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. It's amazing what you get to see when you have a clean heart and you're just a fly on a wall.
Sure. All right, Dan, we are unfortunately out of time.
No, that was great, man.
But I really appreciate you being here, man.
Can I get one quick thing in?
Of course, man.
You asked me about the Scoreholio app.
Yeah.
I didn't go into details. It's kind of like a Facebook app, but you sign in, you create something, you pay a couple extra bucks. Yeah, and it's got everything. You can do billiards, you can do darts, you can do bocce, you can do shuffleboard. There's a list of about 15 things. Create the profile, get on there, click on, figure out, maybe just go walk in. Maybe you could say, I never played before, I'm interested. They might tell you where to go and practice to get 4 on the board and then come on out and enjoy your time. But if you don't put at least 2 to 4 on the board every time, you're just going to leave feeling like you let someone down.
Right. All right. Daniel Herrington, live in studio here at All Western New York Radio. We'll be right back.